All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started and just talk about a couple of things before I kind of get into some things that I've been looking at on what we've been talking about as far as the whole soulmating process. Before I get into anything, though, I did want to know if there were any questions about anything. Were y'all here for the time discussion? I wanted to field some questions about that. If there's any thoughts on that came up, or anything from that discussion. What did y'all take away from it, or what did y'all have any inputs to it, or anything like that?
I'm trying to remember.
It's going to be very interesting to see exactly how the time changes with the whole 2012 thing. And
Yeah.
the impact of that as well.
You got any insights on that from your astronomy background?
No, it's just going to be interesting
Yeah.
to see, because I know all of that with the time, the time basically being like fundamentally ingrained in us with how the system works now.
Mm-hmm.
So with this new enlightenment, what role time will not exist anymore, or if it does on a lot smaller scale. So
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how that is with.
How it's gonna play out?
Yeah.
Yeah. I got you on that. Definitely got you on that. I was thinking about it too, and I really believe that these things that are happening lately, and I even believe that assassination attempt was a play on an attempt to destroy the transition of time. So I'll get onto that just for a little bit and how that relates a little bit, along with some things that I've been looking at. So I remember I called you that day and asked you for that information about the angel Gabriel, because when I was looking at, she's a congressman, right?
Giffords?
Yeah.
Yes.
So Congressman Gifford, her name is Gabriella, or Gabrielle Gifford. It's like Gabriel.
That's it.
So that's why I was calling you that day, to get that information, and I wanted to look and see what does the angel Gabriel correspond to, right? And see this, you'll be able to appreciate a lot of this too. But the angel Gabriel is associated with the moon. You know what I mean? So I was looking at that. The angel Gabriel is associated with the moon, and it's associated with being the angel that delivers highly important messages. So when I looked at that, my mind just started really to twirl a lot. Now the second thing that I looked at was the assailant. His name is Jared Lee Loeffner. Now the thing that really caught me was his first name, because I knew that was a Hebrew, a biblical Hebrew name. So when you go and you look up Jared, you're going to get the individual in the book of Genesis who is, I believe, the father of Enoch. Now, that wasn't the critical point at all. But what was critical to me is what his name meant when I looked up the Hebrew meaning. And when I looked at it, the name Jared means to descend or descent, or it means the fall of powers, the bringing down of powers. So I was looking at this, and I was talking to Sheldon, and talking to a friend of mine up in New Jersey, and I started to see, man, when we're looking at these events, and this is why I get caught up on these events that I'm seeing on TV, because now I'm understanding that right before our eyes, the universe is showing us a play of what's going on in the spiritual realm through providence and positioning of things. So when I was looking at that, and I was also looking at how y'all remember when we studied Dinah in the scriptures? Dinah was the sister of the 12 brothers. Oh, you wasn't? Well, anyways, in the scriptures, there was this point in the middle of the story about Jacob and his sons. Out of nowhere, it's a particular point in Genesis, and I forget the chapter, where it begins to deal with Dinah, who is their sister. And I'm really going to speed the story up, but how it goes is basically this tribe's people, one of them, I think the king wanted Dinah, and he ended up like molesting her or something, which caused two of the brothers to go and basically circumcise all the people and kill them. They just went through and killed everybody. And I was looking at that in light with this too, because I was looking at how the feminine triggers action, spiritual action. Even though things appear to be tragedy, there are things that happen on, and what we have to be able to see out of it is what opportunities are within it. You never underplay the tragedy at all, but as we have talked so much about being contextualizers of our experience, what I was just kind of looking at in that was how we have to see the forces in play with the whole situation. You know what I mean? Because when Dinah was raped by that tribe's people, it brought they singled out two brothers, and that was Simeon and Levi. And Simeon's name and Levi's name have very powerful spiritual meaning, and that is that Simeon's name means to hear or to understand, spiritually to hear. It's the same word that has its roots in that word as Shema, or to hear, O Israel, when they say the Shema. Yeah. So it means about to understand deep within, or to hear the Creator within. And then Levi, who was the progenitor of the Levites, or the priestly caste, his name means to join or to intimately connect. So at Dinah's, her tragedy in that story, and her name means judgment, it brings about a spiritual change, which has to do with being able to attentively, basically becoming receptive to the Creator and joining ourselves to the Creator. So in her tragedy, it was actually like a spiritual sacrifice that brought about the effects of balance and compassion in the land, or spiritual awareness in the land. So when I was looking at that and overlaying it, and I was looking at Gabriel Gifford, the situation, then I saw that in the midst of this terrible tragedy, Providence was speaking in encoded language, because there was a fault. I saw in it that there was an individual who was representing something that is falling, or a government or power or mind state or attitude in the land that is in a state of dissension, which is losing its power, coming into contact with someone whose name represents it represents a mighty man of God. But also one of the root names for Gabriel is Geberet, or Geberet, which means queen. You see? And the name is connected to the force of the moon, which is where we feel our connection emotionally, and we have our experiences. So I saw that in the activity of the assailant, he represented the forces that are descending and trying to hold on to power, trying to attack the womb, or the spiritual womb that is able to keep us connected. And he attacked someone whose name represents great message. So in the entire event, there was a great message, and what's really on the physical plane was so powerful. If y'all keep looking at this, she's still recovering. That is really I will put this exactly. I'm going to say this even while this is being recorded. It would not shock me at all. Matter of fact, in my soul, I expect her to have a full recovery.
I do too.
I expect it completely, because of what I believe she represents is spiritually going on. Because her and her name symbolizing the moon, and we know that the moon is connected with the lunar cycle, and how we were connected before on the 13th moon cycle, and how that connected us in our experience with this world. I kind of just saw that whole play out as something much larger going on, and it happened in the month of January. you know, which is the month that is ruled by Saturn in government, the month that rules government and sociality and things of that nature. So I saw all of this happening at the apex time, and it happened on the 8th as well, which is another number of governmental rule and power. So I really saw the operation of providence and the Christ and how that whole thing played out, and I see it now in how it is continuing to play out with her recovery. And I believe that I don't want to get, like, I know a lot of people have the conspiracy theories about whether he was some kind of Manchurian candidate or something like that, but it really doesn't matter. I think more so what matters is that there are certain things that happen, and there are certain things that have been predestined to occur providentially that can't be stopped, even by something like this. So even when these type of things occur, the end play of it goes in the favor of what was destined to happen at this time, which I think is a restoration of balance. Because I wanted to put the other thing in this is that Obama's speech, I think, set an atmosphere. He did a speech on January 18th, and I believe it set the atmosphere so that a much greater level of balance can continue to be made. And I think he continued that with the speech last night. Now, am I saying anything about politics going to become the savior of everything? I don't know, and I don't really believe that. I'm not sure how it can happen. I don't know. But I think the tone that is continuously been interjected into the atmosphere since that time, and his name, Barack, means to bless. Do y'all know that? His name means, yeah, a long time ago, his name means to bless or to submit and bless. What'd you say?
Right.
Exactly, man. Exactly. You see what I'm saying?
He was going back to the whole thing in the Bible with the names or whatever, and the key word you said was balance.
Yeah.
So now you see a balance.
Yes. And I think that overall the message in this is that there is a ripeness of consciousness and energy that is available to us to access and implement in our own lives and the world around us, you know. So that was one of the things I said. I was just, those are some of the things that I looked at in that. And it kind of showed me again, because I'm telling you, the thing that, I'm going to tell you what really blew my head that I thought about. You had Michael Jackson pass, the angel Michael, you see, and then you have a Gabriel, you know. I'm like, you know, it's really showing me that we really separate what we represent spiritually. But these events, I believe, are trying to break that separation and show that who we are here are angelic forces of the Creator. You know what I mean? And what happens is, even when we're not conscious of it, we are angelic forces of the Creator. And I think that we have the opportunity to come into resonance with the Creator based on the unique frequency that we are, and really get settled with that so that we're not unconsciously representing these forces. You know, that's what I think we really have an opportunity to do, because there's really a high-level spiritual play going on, and if we take the time to simply walk in it and be conscious of it, even when we don't particularly understand every aspect of how things are playing out in our life at this particular moment in this one, but when we take a space in ourselves and recognize, you know what, I am the walking steps of the Creator, and recognize that, then we give ourselves kind of like we give ourselves the pull and the drive. We put ourselves in a position to allow the Spirit to lead us into the fullness of that, to really enjoy it and experience it, you know. So that's what I wanted to get out there about the Gifford thing. I think she represents something much larger than her or any of the rest of them can recognize.
I was thinking about what you were talking about, what she represents and what he represents, and I know that the moon also has to deal with the subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
Is there another way we can? I feel like there might be more with that, with the subconscious and messages.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? And how we're growing spiritually, like the things that are taking place, I guess, in the subconscious of man.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, Well, one of them is this, that whole situation shows us that we are completely being guided subconsciously. You know what I mean? Completely. I don't even think the guy may not have been clearly understanding what drove him so strong to do that.
Yeah.
But what I'm seeing with this in the play with the names and how the situation really came together is that was a portal, a vortex for us to be able to marry our conscious to our unconscious, our subconscious. You see, that's really, whenever you have a major event like that, it's like a Stargate to where you can like go into the other world where the two are married instead of where the two are separate.
Because I thought about it as like a deliberate attack on our shifting with female
Yes.
energy and
Mhm.
I guess the next stage of our evolution.
Yes, and that's exactly what it is, and that's why it came from a male. You know, it came from a male, and even I'm like, you know, I think even when they're showing these pictures of him, they're showing a picture that kind of really reminds you of skinhead Nazi kind of institutional power. They don't show any other pictures of him, but the ones that make him very much look in that image of that institutional kind of crazy power. But when you look at the pictures of her, you see that brightness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that this is definitely, and I think that this whole year is about this because, you know, if you look at 2010, more, I swear, maybe I just was paying attention more politicians and big-time preachers were exposed of things than I could ever remember. You know? So I think that was basically that was a reaction to the divorce that is there. Because what do you have? When you have a divorce from what you're consciously doing and what you're subconsciously doing, then you manifest multiple personalities. You know what I mean? You manifest one side of your life that you hide, and all that was being brought up last year, not as, like some people say, judgment to those individuals, but I think it was being brought up to kind of like heighten our sense of need and urgency to come into that marriage with that subconscious force, because that subconscious force that we're talking about is the antenna of the cosmos, so to speak. That's the part that Jesus was always speaking to in the Gospels. He was never speaking to their consciousness. He was only doing so just to give them enough words to relate to him as a physical body, you see? But everything he was really speaking to was the subconscious, and that's why everything was in a riddled format. Because he was trying to create that marriage. And when we create that marriage, what begins to happen is there's less and less of the schisms and uncertainty that we experience, you know? And I think that where we are right now is at a place where we have an opportunity to eliminate them schisms between how we see ourselves when we look in the mirror and how we see ourselves when we feel how we feel.
Two things. One, you were talking about creating that marriage, and that brings to mind the wedding feast.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably more so than, oh, we're going to marry Jesus, or
Yes.
we're going to marry God. We're
Mhm.
marrying those two aspects of
Yes.
ourselves, and that would be what the celebration is for.
Yes, and I'm going to say this again because Pastor Richards touched on it. If you look at the context of that story, it really points to that marriage being Jesus' marriage.
Yeah.
Now,
There's something else though about that's supposed to happen in the future, like the bridegroom that's waiting for his whatever. You know what I'm saying? I don't know the scriptures very well.
oh, you're talking about Christ waiting to marry the bride? Yeah. See, because they're all replicas. They're all replicas of that thing. But and then look at the story that you pulled up, because when they were running out of the wine, he didn't want to do anything about it. But it was Mary that told the servants, no, y'all do whatever he says. The subconscious is speaking to him. You see what I'm saying? Like that. I wouldn't even equate the Mary being his subconscious. That's how the universe speaks to us. You see, there's the universe, Mary the mother, and then there's Mary Magdalene, the subconsciousness. They're two sides of one half. You see that? So the universe will urge you and place and place things around you at your command so that you are aware that you have what you need in order to be who you need to be. So when the universe nudged him, because he had developed enough sensitivity to understand how the universe speaks to him, that's what allowed him to be confident enough to pull off that transformation, which I think was the gateway to him marrying Mary Magdalene, who was his subconscious. You see, because when the two are married, that's when you have the power to not perform, but to become miracles, because the two are married together. You see what I'm saying? And miracles are literally happening all the time, and we are miracles all the time. But when we marry to that inner part of our heart, then we become conscious of it. Because look at this. Gabriella Gifford is a miracle, and she may not even be conscious of where she is right now. You see? So just imagine how we can use spiritual practice to come into that kind of alignment with who and what we are, you know? So I like that question. And I did want to put out again, because I want to put this out in case anyone is watching, is that in that story at the wedding feast that we talked about, Mary, the mother, represents the universe and the womb that we come from, the universe. Mary Magdalene, who you always see with Jesus, represents his subconscious, represents his vibrant emotion and intuition and how he connects to everything in this world. Jesus, the man, was just the conscious, the covering of that inner feeling that could express itself in a way that we can relate to. Because I have a subconscious that is vibrant and emotional, but if I don't have a flesh body that y'all call Jamil, then you can't relate to what I'm expressing spiritually. Neither can I relate it to you all, you know.
The only other comment that I had was you were talking about the politicians and like the big preachers that were exposed last year. Those are people that want to hijack those subconscious antennas.
Yes.
And they try and interrupt the messages that you would be receiving, you know, so they can manipulate you.
Yeah. And that's exactly right. And you know, the way they do it is by harnessing the power of other people's subconscious. That's all it is, because it's mastery of physical time and trapping people in physical time by surrounding yourself as the figure of physical time. Because the only way a person like that can stay in power is they have to hook you subconsciously. And when they do that, you actually, like, man, if you could see it, like if we could like see it spiritually, you would see stems of light beams going to these individuals. And you would see them becoming brighter and brighter in this physical plane. And that's exactly what they do. So the exposure of them, when that occurs, what it does is it breaks that beam from the masses long enough for those who are ripe enough to discover that what they were giving their energy to was not necessarily what they thought was the creator. And that's, you know what I mean? So, because you know, a lot of people were feeling bad about the Bishop Longfalls and the other guy in Atlanta, and I mean, Benny Hinn getting divorced and all of that kind of stuff. And, you know, I kind of felt bad too, because I know people put their all in that, man. You know what I mean? People put their all in those individuals. But then I was like, you know what? That's good, man. All of our figures need to be disturbed if we don't have the right connections to who we are through them. You know, and that's how that is the force that drove the Jared, right, to try that attempt. That's the force. It's the fear of slipping out of this time stream into a balanced one. You know. Because what we're going to move into, and this is what I was thinking about when Pastor Richards was speaking, when we are flowing in a balanced time stream, right, then it's just like when you're enjoying yourself with people. Time is passing, but you don't recognize it. Now, for us, that's almost like rare for us, or we almost are like overly dependent on particular instances because we're in such synthetic time. Think about your 9 to 5 and the level of demand, but the lack of relationships. 8 to 5. The 8 to 5. Yeah, I'm sorry, 8 to 5. Now, it creates imbalances, man, and you lose rhythm with yourself. You know, I know in my family we have a lot of insomnia. I just cracked that a year ago, not being able to sleep at night, you know, and it's because of these kind of things. But when we're on when we go back to what I call organic spiritual time, then we will still have jobs, you know, we will still be working, but the schedules will be based on the rhythm with the earth, the universe, and the soul that the Creator designed within us. So when you're working, you're not going to be psychologically drained, and that's why, like, when you look at the old people, like my grandmother, when I was living with them when I was like 12 and 13, she would still get up 5 a.m. and go out into the yard and plant, and she'd go out 5 a.m. You know, she's doing that at a 60 something. Now, when she came back in, she never was tired like I'm tired going to work. You know what I mean? I'm going to work like 7 or 8, and I'm not lifting anything, but there's a different type of demand and a less significant level of relationship. Because think about this, there is a relationship between my grandmother, her hands, and that soil, because what she's placing in it is on a time frequency with the earth, right? And then when it comes out, it's going to feed people who she loves. You see? So when we get back into natural time, I believe everything we have will still exist, but we'll learn how to amplify its capabilities, but not at the extent of destroying intimate love or relationship. Because imagine, and I've always said this, I know this is almost like a little bit of an off type of topic, but my highest goal would be to be in a situation where all of us could work completely 100% full time. You know what I mean? Because if we were doing that, my every breath of waking up would be towards some type of higher goal that's not only providing for myself and you all, but it would be setting up a scenario and an environment that would be able to provide for people as well. That's the natural rhythm we were made to be on. That's why when you look at all the indigenous cultures, they have a flow of work and family. Work and family, and then they have a flow of honoring everything that everyone produces. So, you know, I think that what's happening is, and I was talking to Pastor Richards about this, we have already entered back into natural, organic, spiritual time. But what's happening is because we're in the transition, it's like when you put an animal in the back of a cage and it knows its time is up, it fights the loudest. So almost everything from the old age of synthetic time is kind of like roaring out, saying, I'm still here, you can't leave this, look at that, but don't allow yourself to settle in natural spiritual time, you see. But I really believe that even these events are occurring to show us that we are already there. We're already there now. We're just settling ourselves with it. We're having to settle ourselves with it. And that's why, like, even lately, my thinking is different, man. I want to start approaching people and be like, yo, let's live in houses together. You know what I mean?
Which people?
What you say?
I was gonna say which people, but yeah.
Oh no, anybody. I'm putting this out there. I'm about to start engaging. The way that I'm feeling now, I feel completely broken from the constraints about the old constraints and conventional thinking about how to come up. I feel no attachment to it anymore, you know? And everything now that the Creator is speaking to me is like, hey man, whatever you all have to do, whoever's flexible enough to do this or that, establish your life in such a way that you have overage, abundance of resources so you can give them to others. That's it. I mean, that's how we're going to make the transition to be settled with the natural time that's pulsating now. The way we're going to do that is by saying, you know what? I know how I have been programmed by conventional thinking and synthetic time. Cool. Okay. That's how we were all educated. That's how we were all conditioned. But how you move yourself out of it is by creating as many opportunities as possible in the now to start shaping an experience that will allow other people to move into that same direction. You know, so if we always talking about the age of Aquarius, and we're talking about the breaking away from conventional thinking and conventional perception of time, then we have to look at what are the qualities of the age of Aquarius, and it has to deal with playfulness, you know what I mean, creativity. It's the sign that's linked with genius thinking, you know what I mean, thinking that is beyond convention, and it has to deal with collectivism, you know what I mean, so it has to deal with networking. This is what is already going on. What we're doing right now is networking, and that's why, like, I feel connected to the electrical impulses of this technology to speak in this kind of way, because somebody may see this. And I'm putting this out there because a lot of the reason that we feel so disconnected is because we are still worshiping the God of a conventional age that has already passed, you know. And it's so crucial that I sometimes be nervous with putting some stuff out, like when we're connecting, because you're like, oh snap, you know, that's not a format that has been out there. But that's the stuff we have to press into, because the age of Aquarius is about breaking any conventional or traditional thinking that is not conducive to positive relationship and alignment with the Creator, you know. So that was something that I really wanted to put out there, because like I said, my entire thinking now, I feel like I'm already living where we're headed. So I'm trying to slowly but surely break ideas out, and I'm gonna be throwing stuff at some of y'all, man. I'm gonna be throwing stuff out. I already do, but I'm gonna be throwing stuff out gradually from what I need to do to help pull us, and I expect the same from you all, you know, so that we're working to create an arc or a transitional experience, so that people can start to understand that, you know, everything from the past is not necessarily going to be in the future, you know, not everything, you know. So I wanted to just kind of touch on that. But that natural time flow is already here. We're already in it. We're not, the 2012, what may happen physically with the alignment of the stars and everything will be basically like the last call for alcohol. You know, it's going to be like, if you ain't got in, now is the time for you to get aligned at that point. Because anything that we've seen the stars, seen a pattern of the stars doing, and we know we'll do it again, is simply a holographic signpost of what man should have already been doing in the first place, you know. So that's what I think about 2012. We are 2012 now. We're already there, and the rest will follow in that time period, whoever needs to. Any other thoughts or questions on that particular topic? I'm going to touch on something a little bit. I think we were talking about rejoicing in the middle of your situations a little bit on Saturday. And I wanted to just kind of just touch back on that just a little bit, because I was looking up the word praise, because that's a word that we all grew up with, and we all had a conventional thinking about what the word praise meant. And I was just looking it up for the past couple of days because I wanted to revisit it and see how it connected. And when I was looking up the word praise, the first one that's used in the scripture is one concerning the point in which Judah is born to Leah, I believe. And she says, you know, the Creator has been in the midst of this area, and I give the Creator praise, and so I shall name my son Judah. And I was just looking at that, and I wanted to kind of look into the word to see how it aligns with what we're talking about as far as rejoicing in the moment, even when we can't feel why. And then when I was looking at it, it came out to be a word, yada. Are you there at that? Or are you on something else?
Yeah, Genesis 12 and 15.
Is it praise in there?
Yeah, and Princess of Pharaoh see her and praise her unto Pharaoh, and we're looking at the word praise. Well, her and commend.
Okay.
Halal.
Halal, yeah, okay. That's the other. There's two other words. One is talul, and the one is talul, something like that, and the other one is something tehalul, tehalil, or something. But what I wanted to get into is the the rooting of these words and kind of like how it plays out as a real kind of concept. You know, because when I was growing up, they were always saying, give God praise even when things were bad. And I always, you know, I kind of wanted to understand what that meant, because at that time I couldn't comprehend that. Because I'm like, if something feels bad, it is bad. I don't even know what this other part of it is. But then when I looked at the word for when Leah says it, I think in Genesis chapter 29, and it's dealing with the yada, and I keep seeing this yada, it's Y-A-D-A-H in English. And I keep seeing this thing go back to this Yoda, man. It's Yoda. It's like almost like expressed like Yoda.
What verse is yours?
29. If you type in the word praise, there should be one concerning Leah in Genesis chapter 29 about Judah's birth. But when I looked at the word, it means to speak well of. It means to honor or to give thanks towards. But then when you look at the root of it, the root of the word for praise is Yah. And what it deals with, the word Yah, is it simply says hand or power, you know? And when I was looking at that, it started to form in me that what this thing is actually saying is that anytime we're going through something, we already know how we feel and think about it. But that in the midst of that situation, whether good or bad, according to our comprehension, the way that let's talk really about the bad, because we don't need to talk about the good. Anybody is thankful when things are good. But when we're dealing with the bad and we're in a place of confusion, then what I was seeing in those scriptures that talk about count it all joy, then what I'm seeing here is that it's talking about honoring and giving credence to the hand of the Creator in all of your situations. You see? And the importance of that is this. The importance of the science of these scriptures is talking about, okay, we know how we feel, and we do go through points where we are going to experience a sense of complete separation from the Creator. I mean, not even separation from people, but we sense a complete separation. But this is talking about the importance of constantly reprogramming the brain to be a throne of the spiritual mind. You see what I'm saying? So when we position our heart and then allow our words and our conversations and interactions to always fall back to this kind of positioning, then what it does is it reprograms the physical synapses of the mind so that we can receive light from within the situation, so that we can actually be empowered by that hand, you know? And that's what now I'm sharing what we were discussing earlier. Like, no, not your details, but when we were talking earlier, it's important to be able to express how we're feeling about things because we give space for the hand to actually operate through it. You see what I'm saying? So like, okay, I'm not going to go around and pretend I don't feel a certain way. But when it's talking about praise in the scripture, it's talking about always revisiting and understanding that the hand, you see, that the intimate or that you are always, because yada is to have intercourse or to know, to be intimate with, to be interlocked. It means to always revisit the fact that regardless of how we perceive things and how we express things to one another, to revisit the actuality and the truth and the reality that we are having intercourse with the power of the Creator even through that situation. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, that's what allows us to transition through things properly, because it aligns us now with that Yoda. Because you remember what Yoda was always speaking about, to acknowledge the force. Do you see what I'm saying? So he was saying, regardless to how things appear, I mean, it's more, was, Yoda was talking to Luke, and Luke discovers that Darth Vader is not the man who killed his father, but is his father. And Yoda is still saying you have to acknowledge the force within it. Because the yada, or the praise, the principle of it is about reprogramming ourselves even when we can't sense the connection. And that reprogramming allows us to transition by allowing us to be impregnated from that intercourse with the hand. Does that make sense? So everything we go through, and the other word for praise goes back to that root word halal.
Yeah, that's another thing I want to say right quick too.
Mm-hmm.
How language works is, for example, if you go somewhere or a part of the world where it's very cold, they have a lot of different words in their language to describe the coldness.
Mm-hmm.
If you go somewhere where there's a lot of water, you have a lot of different words to describe the water. So the reason why I said that is because we have two different words that basically mean praise.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have to look at both of these words, and I want to, say that or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But that hala word has a lot to do with shine,
Yeah.
and brightness,
Mm-hmm.
and clear, brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I wanted to go to. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I wanted to go to, because both of them are connected.
Yes.
When
exactly.
you are bringing your focus, see, and this goes back to what I was talking about with the soul man. You remember when I was talking about the appetite? When you allow your appetite or your internal drive to eat or feed upon or to revisit this reality, right, and to invoke it within you, then what happens is it intimately connects you with the hand of the Creator, which is the force of the Creator of whatever is going on in your life, whether it's transition, whether it's things that are occurring, and that creates the halal. That creates the ability to bring forth the light. So when we're honoring every situation as a process of the light, it allows us to be impregnated by the light. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's why these things are about connecting us to the different dimensional energies that are available. Because when we go through anything and we say that there's a struggle or a hard time, those are the situations that kind of discombobulate us, and they disconnect us from our awareness of the potential energies that we are connected to. So what praise does is it reprograms, and it's almost like a preparation. It sets you on autopilot while your mind and emotions are still experiencing everything, and it sets you on autopilot to still be impregnated with the understanding of how you're flowing in time and space towards a destination of where you're supposed to be. So I wanted to just kind of touch on that when we talked about this a little bit earlier about the DNA, and they say 90 to 98% is junk DNA. That DNA serves the same fundamental principles and rules as language, which means that language, we are able to program ourselves. And that's why this scripture is there. So the praise thing has to be with honoring that we are interwoven in a flow of the Creator at all times, and to basically to express light in those situations while understanding we're connected to it and matching it with our speech as well. You know what I mean? Which also is communicating with one another, Because think about this. We know people we can talk to who will amplify our negative. You see? Like I always use this example. Joy doesn't never let me complain. So I got to call somebody else sometimes to at least hold a stronger conversation on this stuff. But, but at the same time, while I digress, because she might be watching this at some point, I think the point of that is, in her case, to not allow me to get off in a doldrum place. But even when we're connecting and we're sharing to express, that also alleviates us from additional attachments to the stuff. Because we have to speak things out with the intention of praise within ourselves in order to be removed from the anchor of that weight of that energy of that change. You see what I'm saying? So that's what's always available to us. And I just want to touch on that because the root of praise has to do with shining forth light. So when we revisit the fact that the Creator is completely, intricately involved in the situations that we go through, we actually become the light in those situations. And when we interact with one another in our times of transition with the basis of acknowledging the Creator in those things, then we create a kind of like an undergirding energy to move us through these transitions more smoothly.
If you go to 49 and 8, it also has both of the yada and the yard right there together. In the literal translation, it's saying, Judah, thou whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand, it goes straight from praise to
Right.
That's just an adversary. It's not necessarily a particular enemy or something like that. So it was just those together with praise and telling you that it's the hand, basically breaking it down right there together.
Yeah, and I like that because you basically pieced together another aspect of it that I wanted to emphasize. Because with what praise does is it actually puts the hand upon the neck of the adversarial thoughts that rise in us that try to assert themselves as programming. You know what I mean? So that's actually like a tactic to overcome lesser forces and thoughts that try to rise in us. So I really like that. And you kind of can see now why they deal with the root of Messiah coming out of the branch of Judah. It's more so dealing with that reality rather than it is some kind of linear. There's no linear stuff. You know what I mean? People try to do this linear stuff, but that's not what it's talking about. It's talking about the attitude and the spiritual principle. You know. So and then Yeshua's name, it has links within that too, with the Yah in the hand, the hand.
So you can get the understanding of whatever. You also have to approach this with open mind. You can't even approach it with the linear. I want to make this into whatever I want to make it into.
Yeah, you're right. You're definitely right. Because I saw how growing up, that concept became like a very pop kind of deal, the praise thing, and then it went and became completely musicified.
Yeah.
You know, and I do believe 100% that there is power in our speech matching the intention, because the speech encases our life with particular energies. Like wherever our life is now, it is a combination of our intentions and the energy that we encase our life with through our speech and actions.
Yes,
You
exactly.
see?
And your intent is what energizes those words in a particular manner.
Right, exactly. And what you saying that, what you reminded me of is, have y'all ever seen, if you look in the scriptures, like when they cross the Red Sea or they do something major, they have a song, they say, and this is the song of Moses. It's talking about them basically anchoring and establishing the intent that they had, which allowed them to reach that spiritual experience, and then intoning it in language as a kind of beacon point for anybody else who is approaching the same spiritual obstacles. You see? So what happens is now, if I'm approaching the Red Sea, but I know Brian has already crossed it, right? And I know that he's already had a victory in that and he's intoned it, then I can tap into my memory and I can align my thinking, my intentions, and even intone the same language as you in order to align myself with where you've already come before I even go through it. So that's the other part about it. With praise, it allows you to time travel to where you already have experienced what you may not yet perceive yet. You know, and that's really like I just thought about that just now, but that's really a big part as well about us flowing in natural time, because flowing in natural time is not about us always anticipating future events or worrying about past ones. It's about intoning, encasing our life with energies based on our intent that we want to experience right now. So it breaks us from that kind of schism that we were talking about earlier. It breaks us from that and allows us to create environments that we want to experience right now and build and create right now in our own life. You know, using the power of our words and speech. You know. So just wanted to kind of build on that. That, you know, a lot of times we don't recognize we have these powers to alter the way we experience certain things that are uncomfortable, especially on the path of growth, and we don't realize that we have the ability to alter the duration of particular experiences, you know, but we have the power to do both. And ultimately, as we connect more and more confidently, these things become less and less of an issue, because instead of us practicing to do it, we become it. So that way, whenever we go through something, we're already at the other end of it. You know what I mean? And that's the process that we're in now. I think that we're in a time now where we can really more speedily get to that place that even when we go through something, our consciousness is not stuck in the time frame scene, on that scene, but instead it's already connected with the Creator while our body is going through it.
I think it's important. We mentioned it before that we put out there the word abracadabra. That's not just a joke. That's just not some made up word. It's not a fluke. It's actually an ancient word, and it's meaning I create as I speak.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what you're talking about.
I swear I want to write that down, dude. I'm gonna write that. I'm gonna write it.
Space, yeah.
Yeah, I am. I'm gonna write that, and I'm gonna write that because that's such a universal phrase that people know.
Yeah, it's something you just play with when you're little.
You like
magic,
everybody got the little stick,
yeah,
the stick.
Wine, yeah.
Bruh. Cadabra.
And what's amazing also is just in our thinking and not being connected, we turn that into magic when that's actually just natural.
Yeah.
Well, magic is natural.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But what I mean is we look at magic as being supernatural when that is just natural or regular occurrence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
True.
Make it something spooky when it's not far-fetched.
That's the biggest I've ever seen you write anything.
You said it's better when I write big.
I know, man, but I mean, it's huge.
And I like the I create as the I and I. You know what I mean? The I of the Creator in I. And the I that is in you is in me. But I love that, man. And I'm going to tell you, see, what I'm kind of struggling with a little bit is I really want to open this thing up. And I got to do it, man. I want to start opening up correspondence of things, And I don't know. I'm thinking I may have to do this on a Saturday because when we talk about abracadabra, I create as I speak, that is so literal that it doesn't make sense because the words that we speak consist of letters and tonal energy, right? Now, the power that allows us to speak this combination of words through letters and tones is our mind or our thoughts, which move as a result of our desires. When our mind is selecting particular tones and audio ability in letters and words, each one of those letters in those words correlate to particular forces. You see? And they go to universal forces. Like I'm really dealing with this stuff now about how the letters correspond to particular celestial forces. You know what I mean? How they correspond to particular planetary forces and how each of those are connected to the personality of man. So we literally are reprogramming and creating as we speak all the time. And that's why what's so crazy, Janice, what you're talking about, and then pair it with what you just said, how we relegated to fake magic, just, pull a rabbit out of the hat. Remember when you're talking about the subconscious? The subconscious is the master, the absolute master of correspondence, pulling things that relate together and creating life forms from them. But the conscious mind is only aware of what it can perceive through the five senses. That's not bad. It's just that the conscious mind is supposed to be the channel to express that which comes from the subconscious mind, which is connected to which connects us to oneness. You see? So I really want to get into that because when we talk about I create as I speak or abracadabra, we are every day utilizing universal forces and bringing them together through our speech and actions. Now imagine as we are becoming one more and more, because we talk about the oneness that exists. When we return to that oneness, what we will be coming back into is an understanding of how to take those tonal energies and the stellar or universal correspondence of those letters and pull them together to create exactly the type of experience that we want. Do y'all see what I'm saying? And I really want to get into this, man, very bad, because I know that I have to break this, and I got to do it in the South too. I think just as Pastor Richards broke a particular mode of religiosity, I have to break a particular mode of fear that concerns the occult, because occult means the word mystery. So when Jesus was saying the mysteries, he was talking about they don't understand the occult. You see? I have to break a fear about that, but then also what has to be broken equally with the fear is the manipulation. You see? Because we are manipulated every day by people who are masters of the mysteries, but they use it to steal energy rather than give it back. You see, and this is why you see the same symbols everywhere. You go on USC campus, you see the same symbols that you'll see somewhere in California, because there are people harnessing these energies. So I really want to get into that, because I think that that is something that I know that I'm here to break. I have to break that layer, and it has to be broken in the South, man, because there's been a lot of kind of like dumbing down of who we are, feeling who we are, and allowing ourselves to think freely. And I got you. And I'll just throw this out there. You know, I remember growing up, if you read a lot, the old people used to tell me, don't look too deep into Jesus. There were always those safeguards. Did you ever hear that? Yeah. I'm being serious. Close family said, don't look too deep into Jesus or you'll go crazy. So I always had those safeguards, but the more older I got, and especially when I came to different environments, I realized that there was a distinguishing difference between Christianity and the Christ, because the Christ leads you into an understanding of all occult mysteries, because the Christ is simply the life force that pervades all reality and connects everything and corresponds everything in a way that life flows together. So I had to put that out there, but let me get what you...
I was thinking about what you said about the conscious mind. Mm-hmm. Is supposed to be the place where you express. Yeah. Right? And I was thinking, we do all of our processing with the conscious mind. Yeah. And there's no connection. Like, if the connection is in the subconscious, and you do all of your processing in the conscious mind, then I can't think of a good way to explain it, so I'm having to fall back on computers, right? Mm-hmm. Have you seen or heard of where they will ask for volunteers to help solve complex mathematical problems, and you can kind of sign your computer up to be used to help solve these problems, and they'll get like thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and their computers are all the processing powers kind of compiled together to solve this problem. Mm-hmm. I kind of think of the subconscious the same way. I mean, once you're hooked into oneness, you're not dealing with anything on your own, and you're processing things through like a much greater side of yourself. Yeah. And you're not just limited to what you can kind of see and touch and deal with. Right.
That makes perfect sense. And if you look at that, right, I'm telling you this, and this is why you see a shift. That's why there is such an invisible wall placed between men and women. Because men process linearly. Now, if you connect a man with a woman, then now that man gains multi-dimensional thinking, and the woman gains the power to manifest consciously all of that multi-dimensional. You see what I'm saying? It's a gateway between the worlds. That's why women have been suppressed for time, because we've been trying to control things on just the third dimension. But what you see changing now, even with the Gifford, with a whole lot of, even Obama, Michelle, you see these things occurring because that marriage is starting to take place, you see? And as that marriage begins to take place, I'm telling you, and I know that this is happening right now, a lot of the things that we even have problems with in the physical, a child can answer those questions, because they're not limited to being blocked into one way of thinking, but instead they have like millions or hundreds of thousands of computers pulling from different avenues, processing different bits of information. And that's what we're going to, and that's why I'm feeling like we're coming to a place where I really want to start to deal with that correspondence stuff, because it's going to put us on a spiritual plane to understand how to interact on that level.
See, I think the rest of our DNA that they don't understand is a computer.
Oh yeah, it definitely
And
is.
like, just because those are the leftover bits that aren't telling the cells in your ear what to do doesn't mean that they're not being used.
Oh, yeah.
Processing information.
And I'm gonna share this with you. They know that that's not junk DNA because they're steady attempting to program it. That's what the reality TV is. That's what the advertisement commercials are about. But because this cocoon experience that we've had is about to open itself up, it can't be stopped. You know what I mean? And I was talking to somebody about this, but when the children of Israel went into Egypt, I was looking at that, and Egypt is a code word for bondage, and it has its roots. It has its roots in a word for mundane, routine life without purpose.
8 to 5.
You know what I'm saying? What'd you say?
8 to 5.
Exactly. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's why I was saying that we are in Egypt now, because the root word of Egypt means to place people in a mundane physical routine. We are in it right now, and the Creator allowed that because the cocoon of the Creator is confusion, self-gratification, and something else. I had a third one in my head earlier today, you know, but it's confusion and self-gratification. But that's what really ferments that desire to crack out of it, you know. So that's where we are. That's where we are at now. And the cracking out of it is coming because the time is coming now where we are at a place where our children, not even going to have to teach them, but set boundaries that they are supposed to be empathic and understand one another. Because it's happening to us now. I mean, I'm walking now, and I can feel people's perspectives as I walk by. You just can feel it. You don't know details maybe, and sometimes you do, but I know that this thing is changing. And I know that our lives are being shifted physically because we are having to get in position quickly. You know? We're getting in position quickly. Regardless of how your situation appears, we are getting in position quickly. And it's this that is actually doing it. Because all we're doing is cleansing our desire to actually consciously walk with what we're doing. To consciously walk in it. So yeah, that's something that I really want to get into, but I want to leave that up there, man, because we're really coming into time to make it short. We're coming into time where this will be the foundation of our entire experience. That's why now I'm starting to look at things a little bit differently, because when you look at this as a reality, now you have a responsibility to think and speak and process differently about the situation you see going on in the world and going on inside of yourself, because you're becoming conscious that you're creating an environment now for life, you know. So we are now creating it. We already are that butterfly in the cocoon, but we're getting ready to emerge. So now we're having to leave all the thoughts of our former life as a grounded caterpillar. And that's why, like, when we're talking about the soul mating, and watch how I just flip into that. You know what I'm saying? When we're talking about the issue of soul mating, and Ms. Barbara asked a question last week that, even though it just was a quick question, it has stayed with me all week. She said, well, if we're going into an experience, I said that we're going into an experience that is unknown to us, right? She said, well, how do we help each other in that experience? And I thought I said something last week. I don't remember what it is, but the Creator has been marinating that thought within me, and that thought has been marinating since she said it. The way that we help bring each other out of this cocoon into oneness is we have to change the whole context of expectation for our lives now. You know, we can't speak in terms of just being limited to the physical in our situation. Everything we do now, we need to start terming things in terms that reflect the height of our imagination, intellect, and intuition. Do you know? You see what I'm saying? So now what we have to be able to do is say, you know what, Brian, you say or feel like that, you know, and you're trying to view it out. but I have to use my words carefully and wisely so that when we're speaking in context of whatever you're going through or whatever you're aspiring to, that I amplify it to bring you into a higher context than what you've experienced before. So whatever we've experienced before in life, in job, in family, and whatnot, we have to give a context that is much more expansive in everything. That's how, like last week, I started to talk a little bit about the zodiac and who we are in the zodiac. Like, I like that because it gives us a context that even though we're on the earth, we are connected to, you see what I'm saying? We're connected to a stellar play on energy. So we're not just limited to being this body. Like when we're talking about our names and breaking that down, we have to go into the highest definition of our names now and pull on that. You know? Like, what do your name mean, Janice? Queen? What, Janice?
Janice is hard. I mean, because it's not really anywhere. The best I could get is that it's a derivative of John.
Okay. You know what else it is? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm gonna give you the context that I keep thinking about. What it's connected to Genesis. Yeah. You know what I mean? And new beginning. And I use that as an example because that naming was flashing to me. In that, like, use it as an example that when we're communicating, right? I have an opportunity that whenever we're discussing something to frame it always in the term of it being a new beginning. Nothing ever being limited to old conventionality. You know what I mean? So I'm using that kind of... Huh? Hello?
Hi. I said we got to be like children.
Yes.
Going back.
Yes. Exactly. And that's exactly what it is. The cocoon that the Creator has placed us in. Oh, you know what it is? Did y'all ever see that movie, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button?
Yes.
That is what is going on with us.
Then we're going backward?
Yes, we were born as old men.
Curious Case of Benjamin?
Yeah, the Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Did you ever
see? I saw that.
That's...
I saw it.
Okay. That's exactly an example of what we are.
Just a little bit.
Turn it up?
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so the Curious Case of Benjamin Button is what we're dealing with. The cocoon that we're in now is one which we're going to come out like youthful. We're going to come out like at the height, spiritually at our height. I don't know what everybody's height is. Some people say it's 40, 50. 30, whatever is your height of you knowing yourself, that's what we're coming out of, you know. That's how we're coming out of this cocoon. That's what this 2012 alignment is about. Because I've really been looking at this word imagination a lot, and it has to do with a combination of image and nation. And a nation is about a rule of a life of people, okay? So in that scripture in Matthew, when it talks about, I assure you this, that unless you receive the kingdom as one of these, you shall not inherit it. You know? So it's dealing with reception of the kingdom has to deal with the ability to image the life that is already in front of you that you may be blinded of because you've been conditioned to see it as an old man. Do you remember Benjamin Button was an old dude? You know what I mean? We're like the old dudes sometimes who is coming... whose eyesight is getting better, and we're being able to see the image of the life of nations and the life of possibilities of existence that has always been right in front of us. So we're de-aging. We're actually de-aging. You probably will start to see a lot of people age reversing who are connected. You know what I mean? The issues connecting, because even our physical DNA has a multi-dimensional aspect to it. So to the degree that we can connect to this light, it changes that as well. Oh, hit you on this. I don't know if y'all noticed, I've been hearing stories of women who are now menstruating again, who had already gone through menopause. You hear what I'm saying? Like, there ain't no, after you stop, that's it. You know what I mean? It's not like men, but I'm hearing stories of this, and all that is to me is physical examples of rejuvenation, of spiritual rejuvenation. You see? So these things are occurring, and I think they are a result of what's going on in the spiritual realm that we don't always see with our five senses. You know,
It reminds me of the Big Bang in reverse. It's blowing up and then it kind of the vacuum sucking back
Yeah.
in.
well, you know, really what's happening, even with the alignment of everything, we are actually headed back to what they call the galactic center. So there is a return, in a sense, to our origins, to recycle and resequence a new beginning on a stellar level. You know, so that's why I see now we always have an opportunity amongst each other to experience it before it physically occurs. And that's why I think that, like we've been talking about, it is absolutely important that in the way that we relate to one another, we choose the highest contextualization that we have in us in regards to one another. In the way that we speak to one another, in the way that we feed one another, you know what I mean? And in the way that we image one another in our head. I'm telling y'all, like, it's very important how you image each other in your head, because that governs how you treat one another. Because the biggest part of this thing, this is me. And it's like, I have this thing where I always elevate people way beyond myself. You know what I mean? Because I say, wow, this person's skill or their gift is so immense. Now, it almost, when I first got here, it almost was detrimental. You know what I'm saying? Because I was elevating people so high, you know what I mean, that it was almost unrealistic. You know what I mean? But I had to mature in that. But I still never took that away. I just learned how to see situations. Because if you're unbalanced with that, you start worshiping people. You know what I mean? Who got more problems than you and needs you help from you. You know what I mean? So, and that's all of us. Because you start worshiping me, I'm going to come need some help from you. And it's going to mess up your worship. You know what I mean? But when we image each other at the highest degree, spiritually recognizing that each person is an integral part of who we are in the spiritual experience, what I learned long time when I got here is that makes you the greatest receiver. Because you can draw from anybody, even someone whose personality is completely adverse to how you express yours. If you image everyone as being the greatest ever to have lived, then you always can receive from them even when they're not physically interacting with you. You see? That's how you amplify your spiritual growth. You know, anybody, you really have to do this with all people, because this creates gateways to enhance all of your relationships with yourself. Notice what I said, all of your relationships with yourself. Because I'm not even separating that thing anymore. You enhance your relationship with yourself, your relationships, you enhance them with people. It's the same thing, you know? So, I wanted to kind of put that concept out there, that's really a practice that we need to have, and that enhances our ability to image nations of our own life, you know?
Yeah, and the better that you get to know and you understand other individuals that you view as separate from yourself, the more that you understand yourself.
Exactly.
The more things you realize and you see by yourself, the more you understand yourself.
That's 100%, man. Because if I had not come into contact with the relationships I had with the people that I came into contact with, it would have taken me another 20 or 30 years to get to know myself. Because I would have just had to bump into stuff, like walking in a room dark. But by connecting with all of my relationships from the very beginning and lifting them up, exalting them very high, you know, into the light, that helps speed the process up by decades. And that's the other part of what you just said. We have the ability, like you see, you know, and I just say this, my mother was saying, because my grandfather was stubborn, man. Very stubborn. I used to love that about him. He wouldn't, you know what I mean? I don't care if everybody in the world said something was one way, he would stick to his guns. It was a strength and a weakness. And my mother is stubborn, and I am as well. But anyways, when she said when he was before, you know, he started to lose his ability to communicate, my grandfather had just said that he had come to terms with some things that he should have accepted a long time ago, you know? And in that, I saw how powerful it was because you know what? He got it. He did get it before he left. And then I said, wow, a lot of those things he picked up at the end, a lot of them my mom picked up now. And then a lot of those things that my mom picked up before my grandfather, I picked up before her. You see how's it changed? But we have, my point in that is that by observing and recognizing the relationships around us and submitting to the desire to become one with the Creator, we can speed up the entire process. We can break the karmic chain of thinking we have to wait till we're 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 or 90 to get to a particular spiritual point. You actually have the ability to achieve it all right now, depending on how much you want to eat from it, you know? So we all have that ability, and it pulsates right now, you know, if that makes sense, you know? So I wanted to just really put that question, I wanted to address that question that Ms. Barbara asked, because that is the nature of us increasing the context and utilizing our imagination is actually how we propel each other into being connected in this time, you know, and how we take all of our opportunities to unite, you know, to build when we're building with one another. That's how we connected as well, you know. Any other thoughts or questions? I still don't know how I'm going to go into this thing, man. I think I'm going to have to do it on a Saturday.
What thing?
This correspondence stuff. I got to get into it so bad.
Well,
you know?
it didn't Barbara? No, she's not done with the attitudes, is she?
No, I don't think so. And that's why something's kind of telling me not to push it into that until she finishes it. Because I want to lay down a foundation about how we are connected to the universe. And really show how who we are, it has all the signs within it, and how it contains the powers, it contains the blueprint to the powers that we possess, and how we actually can combine different indicators of who we are to elevate that power. You know what I mean? Because I've always used this example, and I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. When the Mayans had their children, they used to shake their heads. And the old black people, even still now I don't think they do it anymore. I don't know any old black people that do it anymore. But the generation before, like from my grandmother's generation, they used to shape the children's heads. Now, where that comes from is they were aware of the connection between the season a child was born in and how to shape the head to be a receptor of that particular energy that child was marked with. Mm-hmm. You see? So how they named the child was based upon the parents' connection and the season that he was born in. And these things were done in order to allow that child to access who and what he or she was in order to do what? Become an interdependent part of the community. Do you see? Now, we've gotten far away from that because we more so now are training. We have been trained, and we have an emphasis on training each generation on being financial commodities. But the information is still there, and I want to get onto it, just like we were dealing with your name, right? And I was talking to Brian about just using creativity, imagination, right? How his name is B-R-I-A-N. You have B, the word B, and you have R. You have B and you have R, and then you have Ian or ion. You know what I mean? So you have a double of being in R-ness, of being in R-ness, and you have the word ion, which is positively charged energy. You know what I mean? And I want to kind of start to kind of like give room for us to unlock the spiritual genetic code in our names and our seasons, so that we can build a boundless kind of playground for the spirit that's within us. Because that's what the Christ always comes in the flesh to do, to build an expansive playground built on the boundaries of unconditional love for us to play in. That's it.
And that's also like mimicking the subconscious or correspondence.
Yes. Yes, because look at this. Now you just hit me to something. What draws us to come in at particular times is the subconscious before it's encapsulated in the body.
Mm-hmm.
You see? And what drives our parents is the same subconscious to name us is driven by the Creator. Even if they think they're naming you after JR off of Dallas, you know how they say that, like, I'm naming you off of some character I heard in a book. That is the receptive part of them to the Creator. So when we start to deal, and I'm so talking around this stuff without talking about it, but when we start to go into the correspondence, right, what we're going to do is give a format for the spirit to begin to access that communication and then build upon it. Because it's just like when you learn your ABCs and you learn a few principles, now you can read, and now you can also alter your level of speaking and writing on another level. Now you can use that knowledge to change expression.
So we got to become subconscious literate.
Yes, you got to become subconscious literate. You know what I mean?
People,
Go ahead, Janice.
people have been mistaking my name for Genesis all my life,
Mm-hmm.
and I've ignored them.
Yes.
I mean, I was just like, whatever, it's not my name. I
Mm-hmm.
looked it up. It's John. Okay.
No. So you rejected Genesis and went to a male name of John.
Because I mean, that was what the research told me. So I, you know, and I was just like, where am I getting Genesis from? I mean, yeah, some of the letters are similar, but there's all this E's.
Yeah.
And I have 3, you know,
Yeah.
So anyway, I find that interesting that I never even thought of my name from that perspective, even though people have been basically coming into my life and going, that's your name, that's your name.
Yeah. And look at what I'm saying.
Genesis out of that.
But I love that, because what happens is, out of that, even though you're not going to start calling yourself Genesis, even the mistakes are on purpose.
Yeah, they were deliberate. I was just ignoring them.
You see? And look at that. But now that you're at a place of receptivity and you look at that, we could sit and look at Genesis and begin to break down how that relates to you, because Genesis in Hebrew is Bereshith. And that's the word for Genesis. And it starts with a B, which is a feminine letter. It starts with Bereshith because Genesis, when God says, and God created and he spoke, starts with a B because B is a letter that houses spiritual energies, and it causes a reference point to be created. It's about creativity and creating reference points. You know, you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's a feminine word that deals with taking the semen or light code of the Creator and making it something experienceable for creation. So take that and overlay it with what you have interest in. And you see what I'm saying? And now relate it to something on the level of creation and beginnings. Relate that to the fact that people calling you Genesis all that time, though it seemed like they were misreading your name, were speaking something. Their subconscious was being programmed to see those letters that way to convey a message to you. You see? So this is the thing about the subconscious. It's never any mistakes. There's never any mistakes. And you always can pull things and pull it together. A good site to look at name meanings is paulzadowski.com too. Have you already looked at that one before? I've looked at your name, but I forgot what it is. What is your name? I think it fits you like crazy though.
I have to look back at it, but it's Anglo-Saxon, just the meaning of it is like over the ledge.
Over the ledge?
Over the edge, yeah.
But
Sounds
look
about
at
right.
that probably makes major sense, man, because you are over the
I
ledge.
don't know you that well, but
That makes sense.
you're gonna have to spell Zadowski.
Okay, because let me tell y'all what I intended to do too. I intend one day to come in here and have my man Sheldon pull it up, and then we have some other references. And I want to spend a day looking and seeing what our creativity can pull out of this stuff. You know what I mean? Because I said this last week, and I know it would seem blasphemous from where we come from, but engaging in looking into yourself and looking into others is equal to engaging and looking into the Creator if your motive is about finding the connections.
It's funny because it reminds me of, how people, they look in the stars, they look in the zodiac to see the signs, to get understanding of themselves.
Exactly, exactly. Except the thing is, and like I say, this is the most important fundamental part. When we're looking at things like the stars and our names, these are just encapsulations of particular aspects of us. The thing that makes these search powerful is if our desire is to experience and reverberate and express oneness. Because what I've found, like when I've known people who looked at astrology simply from an intellectual perspective, they view it in a way that imprisons people. You know where we learned it from, our first interaction with Janice now. And it's from a way, if you look at it intellectually, and it becomes, well, this is what you're born under, this is all you can be. That's not the case. These are simply means that the Creator left breadcrumbs to discover a particular affinity for particular energy and powers of the universe, and particular weaknesses in which we have to undergird ourselves with truth and receive from others and give from our strengths.
It's the starting framework.
It's the starting framework, you know? And then the name is just the name is like a bow and arrow being aimed towards what things you can cause an echo in this physical world, you see? So and then the day you were born, that number, you know? That also, all of these things give you different means to assess the frequency of the Creator that you are.
It's like jump off points, portals.
Portals, man.
That's it.
That's all it is. That's all it is. And all of them have correspondences. So I swear, boy, I can't wait to get into it now. I think I had to just kind of talk about it first, though, a little bit before I jump. Because the mistake that I was making is trying to just jump into it before kind of like, you know, you got to kind of do primers first. Because y'all's energy is helping me be more settled with it, you know. Because when I do this, man, I still realize I'm doing this in the South. This is still like devil talk in certain avenues. But check this out. Jesus was devil talk to the age he was speaking to. You know, the age he was speaking to was what was coming. But the age he was in was not completely ready to see that they were made in the image and likeness of the Creator, and that there was grace to experience that. So the same thing that I'm doing and what we are doing is we are basically we're penetrating the womb of the future. You know what I mean? We're penetrating the womb of the future, and we're divorcing the womb of the past. It's negative conventionalities. It's negative attachments. Not all of it.
Well, your pre-discussion is a type of seeding.
Yes.
You know, so that almost like you need ground for those ideas to begin growing.
Right.
So that when you do start the discussion, there's almost like an engine has been started.
Yeah. And let the engine warm up, you know? Or it's like having a date first, you know what I mean? Before you become more intimate, you can't get no kiss without getting to know, you know, be like, where'd you grow up? Where, you know, what kind of wine do you like? Do you like chocolate? No, I hate. You gotta get to know stuff when you get that first kiss, like on Hitch. You know what I mean? You remember that movie?
Yeah.
Hitch.
You know.
You got that
So.
science down.
So yeah. Who is that? Who is that laughing?
It's me laughing. Sorry.
Oh goodness.
Do you like chocolate milk? Yeah.
Y'all there, you get my point. Oh goodness.
I looked at my name last week because I was curious.
What did you see?
So the herb, rosemary, means remembrance and loving. And also my nickname, Bunny, means goddess of victory. I was like, what?
Wow. See, I like that. You said so. Rosemary's remembrance.
Yes, it's an herb. It means
Oh
remembrance.
yeah, cool, man. And you know, and I think about even just the combination of those two names, like the nature of a rose. You know,
Right.
that a rose is like it's a sweet smelling flower. You know, and it gives vibrance to any garden. And then Mary deals with the Miriam, you know, or the bitter waters that produces sweet life, you know.
Right.
So that's awesome. And then what did you say, Bunny?
It means Goddess of Victory.
Awesome. Awesome. See, when we get into this, we're going to look into that even more. All right?
Okay, sounds good.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But anyhow, I don't feel the force to continue any further, man. I think I just needed to prime some different things because I've been trying to get like that first kiss early. I've been getting that feeling like I'm getting smacked by a woman, you know.
Trying to steal the food.
Yes.
Right.
Creator was like smacking me like, you don't just touch me like that. You don't give me no kiss without talking first, you know.
True.
So anyhow, but that's what I wanted to go over. And when we do get into the correspondence, right? I want to really lay out a lot of things that we haven't looked at, man, because like when you look in the book of Genesis and you look at the Noah story, every time a different change happens, it says in the 10th month on the 2nd day, or on the 2nd month on the 17th day. So I always used to say, like, you know, why the heck are they always giving these dates? But now what I'm understanding when I go back and look at that is it's talking about the spiritual atmosphere of that season. You see, that's particular seasons of our life give an atmosphere for particular things, because when the water broke, it tells you the time. When the water started to rise, it tells you a time. And there's relations to the spiritual atmosphere in man that was going on that correlates to the events that they were experiencing. So I want to go into that. So I'm going to really correlate that. I don't know if I'm going to do it on a Wednesday or a Friday, but I really want to kind of show how the Christ is a interconnected character, force, and experience that interconnects thoughts, ideas, desires, and actions that manifest in bodies and the flow of nature. Okay, so we'll get into that another time. But all of this that we're talking about, I haven't really been touching so much on the whole soul mating thing, but really I have, because when we start to deal with how the Christ consciousness corresponds in us to our names and the time we are born, the very thing that you'll see happening at that same time is you'll understand how you correspond to the people who you are obligated to in your life. You will see it and feel it so clear, even if you can't express it with your words, and it gives you a whole nother dimension to play with in your relationship, in your relationships with yourself, as expressed with other people as well. So I really want to get into that, because we've really a lot of times been robbed of being able to feel free to know the frequency, character, and word of the Creator that we are. We've really been robbed from that, and that's what has really affected our families, our household, and our countries. You know, that robbing, because if you are operating as a financial asset rather than a living, breathing person, it's going to disturb how you relate to yourself and things. But gladly enough, we are coming out of that cocoon, and the Creator is downloading the different portals and gateways for us to experience this oneness through our relationships and through these gatherings that we facilitate and the things we experience out there in our life. So anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and close out. But before I do, I want to know if anybody had any questions or thoughts in here or on the phone. I feel good tonight. I felt good before I got here, man. Ever since Pastor just talked about that experience he had Saturday, I just been feeling like a different kind of life kind of flowing, man, you know?
Yeah.
And I still feel like I'm biding my time for something good, something great that's coming,
I do
man.
feel that.
I feel it like so crazy, man. And that, you remember what we're talking about? That's what else is connected to praise. By revisiting that feeling that we know is manifesting even though it's not here. Because it's like your entire life, when you get on this path of oneness with the Creator, you always sense something is coming. You never know when or how it's going to come, but you sense it, and praise is connecting to that which has yet to manifest in your awareness yet as well. You was about to say something? Well, I thought you was talking like a ventriloquist, man. All right, so we're going to go ahead and close out.